How risky is raw milk actually? You might have heard that raw milk is risky and dangerous, and you might have heard that it's super healthy and beneficial. We are going to use AI to create an accurate risk scenario and compare it against other everyday activities to see if it is actually something to worry about or to avoid. You might have heard raw milk is 840 times as dangerous as pasteurized milk. I will explore not just relative, but absolute risk of death. I started with the ChatGPT discussion. Do you think it is accurate and honest to say 20 deaths from raw milk in the past 20 years is probably accurate or on the higher end of deaths from raw milk in the USA? ChatGPT has said, yes, it's accurate if it's framed as an upper end estimate, not a confirmed count. The documented deaths are fewer, but it allows for underreporting without overclaiming, because people don't always get all the deaths in, right? I'm going to try to create an estimate as to what the risk is for drinking raw milk 1 glass a day based off of the estimate of 20 deaths in 20 years to be conservatively high to prove a point based off of how many people have drank raw milk and how often. Perfect. We can absolutely make a rough conservative risk estimate. Step 1, numerator. Using 20 deaths in 20 years in the US is an upper end estimate. That's 1 death per year on average. Step 2, estimate population at risk. We need an estimate of how many people drink raw milk regularly. Based on surveys, roughly 3 to 5% of it, the U.S. population, consumes raw milk at least occasionally. That's about 330 million people. For a conservative estimate, we could use 10 million regular drinkers. To find the exposure, assume 1 glass per day per person. That's 365 exposures per year per person. Step 4, compute risk per glass. Annual deaths, 1. Annual exposures, 10 million people times 365 glasses times 3.65 billion. And then ChatGPT said, perfect, we can absolutely make a rough conservative risk estimate. To find the numerator, 20 deaths in 20 years in the US, that's 1 death per year on average. Step 2, population at risk. Rough estimate, 3.5% of the US population consumes raw milk at least occasionally based on surveys. US population is 330 million, 3% is 10 million people. For conservative estimate, we could use 10 million regular drinkers for this statistic. This is good, in my opinion, because there's a lot of people who drink a lot more than a glass of raw milk a day, and there's also some people who drink it once a week, right? Once a month. Step 1. Step 3. Define the exposure. Assume 1 glass per day per person. That's 365 exposures per year per person. Step 4. Step 4. Compute risk per glass. Annual deaths, 1. Annual exposures, 10 million people times 365 glasses equals 3.65 billion glasses. 1 death over 3.65 billion glasses equals 2.74 times 10 to the negative 10th. That's roughly 1 death per 3.6 billion glasses. Extremely low on a per glass basis. But remember, this is an upper end conservative estimate. Framing. You could phrase it like this. Even using a very conservative upper end estimate of 20 deaths over 20 years for a rough population of 10 million regular drinkers, the risk per glass of raw milk is extremely low, roughly 1 death per 3 to 4 billion glasses consumed. That is conservative, transparent, and defensible. The reason it's saying that is because I asked it to make it all of that so it could be accurate for a YouTube video. Does this number seem lower than death numbers in the past? Is this due to modern standards? Answer concisely. Yes, the extremely low per glass risk reflects modern hygiene, testing, refrigeration, and regulated production, which greatly reduce contamination compared with historical raw milk. This part is important because you might have heard some numbers of, 1,000 people here dying of raw milk, or this happened, But here's the thing. Raw milk can be dangerous in general, for sure, right? But since the deaths and sicknesses that have been caused by it, raw milk has been heavily regulated in the United States. You need permits in most places, and what it takes to get a permit is often a lot of high amounts of regulation, right? And the people who criticize raw milk just don't seem to realize, in my opinion, that it's really not as dangerous as it used to be, right? And that being said, I'm going to make 2 very important points. This is only deaths risk. There will be a lot more sicknesses than deaths, and a lot more, I mean. But other things can get you sick too. Okay, 2 things that are both very important though. First of all, this is only deaths, alright? The amount of sicknesses will be a lot higher, right? A lot higher. But that being said, part of me thinks different people have different strengths of immune systems, right? So, imagine someone getting punched, right? You give someone like a light punch. Same person punches two people, same strength, right? For one of them, it's not a big deal. They shake it off. For one of them, it hurts them and they need to lie down, or they start crying, or they get a serious injury, which is kind of similar to this, right? If you have a compromised immune system already, you probably shouldn't be drinking raw milk, right? And that kind of goes into my next point, which is that these numbers, it's not actually a dice roll in real life of, are you going to get raw milk sick? It's not like that. There are factors that contribute to it, right? Bacteria can multiply at room temperature very quickly for raw milk, right? Which is why you have to be religious about keeping it in the fridge, right? And even if it is in the fridge, it can still have bacteria and pathogens grow. So my recommendation would be, if you are getting raw milk, you don't buy it like a Costco milk shopping for the family where you get like 6 milks and it lasts a month or something, right? You want to get it when you drink it, right? You want to buy. You probably don't want to have more than 1 or 2 in your fridge at any given time because of that. And also, yeah, you want to be healthy in general. You don't want to be giving this to people who aren't healthy in the first place. And keep it, cold and all of that. Buy it from a reputable source, right? And then it's really not so bad. So I think this is all important, right? Because people say raw milk is risky, and it is. But if you look at the absolute risk, not the relative risk versus just milk, I don't think it's that dangerous compared to other people are already doing every day, disregarding the outliers we've talked about, right? So I want to put this in perspective. And it said if the risk of death is 1 in 3.4 billion per day and you do it every day for a year, the yearly risk is approximately blah, 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 1.07 times 10 to the negative 7th, or about 1 in 9.3 million per year. And now, if you relatively compare that to the annual risk of driving 30 minutes a day, which we estimated was about 1 in 14,000, then we could say that driving 30 minutes a day is roughly 660 times riskier for deaths than the raw milk estimate you gave. So, to me, that's kind of proof of raw milk isn't maybe as dangerous as people say it is. I understand why people want you to avoid it. I understand why pasteurization exists. But if you know what you're doing, getting it, if you get it from a good source, if you're a healthy person already, I don't think it's a huge deal. I think you can do that, and then I think you can enjoy what I think are some benefits, which aren't drastic, but there's definitely some. Lactoferrin, other things, depending on how you look at it, right? And so I think this is a good thought exercise to determine, is it really focused on as much as it should be? People like to focus on raw milk because it's part of the, opposition, make America healthy again, whatever argument. But I think there are bigger things, bigger health threats to America that we could be focusing on instead of raw milk, all right? Just relatively. And I'm not saying that people who are after raw milk don't focus on these things too, but I would say it can miss the point sometimes. All right? Hope you guys have a good day. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something today.